Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we're here to present Tao of the Day. Tao of the Day focuses on the Tao Te Ching, which is an ancient text written about 600 BCE. I'm looking at my translation of the Tao, or my rendition of the Tao Te Ching, which has been written since I've been doing Tao of the Day. I started doing Tao of the Day as on, I don't know if it was on Twitter or if it was somewhere else, but Tao of the Day became just a way of picking a number and posting it as a way of having just something to meditate on, something to think about. Just a part of a line or a part of a verse of the Tao Te Ching. And it started, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years ago. And as social media has evolved, I've done different things on Facebook for a number of years. I would post a whole verse. And now what I do is I interact with you and I ask you to pick a number between 1 and 81 because the Tao consists of 81 chapters. And so what I look at the Tao as especially in this context, as sort of a oracle deck. And so if there's something that you're focused on, which is why when you come up, I'll ask what's going on in your life right now. And then we'll just kind of get a baseline. We'll get something to align us with some sort of energy so that when you pick a number, there is something to hang this on. There's something to look at. There's a focus. Now, there are all sorts of ways of looking at this. I do look at the Tao from the aspect of energy produces manifestation. So very much like I know that's the same as law of attraction, other things like that. So energy produces manifestation. And so when I ask you what's going on in your life and you create that baseline, that's the energy that's going to create the number in your mind that you are going to need to look at. And then that is going to unfold. So we're going to bring up, I didn't catch the name, Bonita?
Yes.
How are you, dear?
Oh, great. How are you?
I am well. Is this a surprise? Did you not know what was going to happen?
I had absolutely no idea, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. I'll do the laundry and listen to this person.
Okay, well let's do some laundry.
Sorry, am I supposed to push another button? I'm so sorry.
No. Here we are.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
unless you don't want to talk.
Oh, I love to talk. Are you kidding? No, you
Oh,
got the right
good.
person. Sure.
Oh, so where are you located, dear?
I'm in Massachusetts. Where are you?
I'm just outside of Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. I've never been there, but I heard the sidewalks are really wide. And I thought, I've always thought, I wish we had wide sidewalks.
Yeah, you can walk 3 abreast.
Wow, that's so impressive. Oh my gosh, that's so great. I always wanted to go visit Chicago just to see the sidewalks.
we have an amazing lakefront, and then that you can walk 6 abreast in that. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is really fun for me. This is fascinating. I've just met technology, you'd think, sort of. I mean, I'm just, new to this, which is ridiculous. I do film and video production, but I have guys like you who know how to work all this stuff. That's not what I do. I don't even know where the on button is on the camera,
No, quite all right. Quite all right. That's funny. I had for a number of years I had a production company here in Chicago. I worked with the arts. I did stuff with the I was an artist for a long time, but then then I did a series called Chicago Arts, which dealt with interviews of people involved in the arts in Chicago. So whether or not you were
Oh,
an artist, but you may be a collector, you may be.
yeah.
And then when YouTube and all that started, I started a small company that worked with like helping arts organizations like the symphony and like the Chicago Symphony
Oh, sure. Oh, that's
and
wonderful. Well, once an
yeah.
artist, always an artist. You're never not an
Yeah.
artist.
And so now I've moved my art into the healing world and into the
Sure.
mindfulness world and whatnot. And yeah,
Ah,
all sorts of things. And I just published a rendition of the Tao Te Ching. Are you familiar with the Tao Te Ching?
no, no, I'm
No,
not.
okay. So
Never
that's
heard,
what
even
this
heard of
is.
it.
This show is aligned with the Tao. So the Tao is an ancient text. It was written about 600 BC.
Wow.
And so that's around the same time a lot of scholars believe the Old Testament was written,
Uh-huh.
and it consists of 81 short chapters that help us live what I call a more reasonable life.
I love it. Yeah.
What I mean by that is
Reasonable is a good word. I'm liking that.
right.
Right.
What it means is for me, and how I understand it is it helps us live in a way that doesn't require other things to change for
Mm,
us to be fulfilled or to live a good life. We're
mm,
not asking the weather to change. We're not asking our neighbor to change. We're
mm,
not asking other people to be other than they are in
mm.
order for us to be fulfilled,
What a shift of focus. I like that a lot. Yeah.
right? And
Very
so
nice.
this is as just a text. This is more of a philosophical text. Now, this text is also, you may have heard of Taoism, which is a religion. It's
Yes.
an
Yes.
Eastern religion. Now,
Sure.
this text also is the sort of foundation of that religion. However, we don't approach it from a religious standpoint. We approach it simply from the philosophical concept of how is it that I can live in a more reasonable way.
Yeah. You sound like a Unitarian. That's who I am.
Okay.
It
And
sounds about right. Get together on Sunday if you can make it, but if you can't, that's okay.
yeah,
It's fine. It's fine.
that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be there in spirit.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
So what I like to do is just kind of start and kind of form a baseline and just sort of say, hey, what's going on in your life? Anything going on in your life that stands out at this moment? I mean, right now you're doing laundry, and that could be it.
Well, I did stop doing that. Yes, I'm having
Okay.
coffee now. Yeah. Well, there's a ton of overlap of everything you've shared with me, which should not be a surprise. I mean, there's a reason, I suppose, that I'm not logging into the Republican Party this morning. Do you know what I mean? This, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I decided not to do that. Years ago, I would watch 2 or 3 hours of news. Now I'm like, okay, 5 minutes, just to find out what's happening, and then
just to
that's
be
it.
just to be disgusted enough.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a fascinating time to live. I mean,
Yes, it
it's
is.
a fascinating time to live. So,
It's
and
absolutely.
yeah. So, well, I don't know. I feel like, am I taking your time or something by
No.
sharing
This is
information?
exactly what this is.
Really? Okay. Oh, well, that's
So
great.
what I would love now,
Fascinating.
after we have just kind of established a little bit, and
Yes.
that's all we need, is for you to pick a number between 1 and 81.
Oh, great. All right. Oh, it has to be 16.
It has to be.
It has to be. I was walking, trying to get my steps in yesterday, and getting my steps in. I shouldn't say trying. I was getting my steps in, and I'm in the middle of a parking lot at a supermarket because it's not Fifth Avenue here in Massachusetts. It's just a parking lot in a market basket. But so I was getting my steps in, and I see this thing in front of me, and I'm walking closer, thinking, boy, isn't that funny? It's probably a piece of paper, but wouldn't it be funny if it were money? And you know what? It was. It was
It was
$16. $16,
$16.
which I mean, it was a 10 and a 5 and a 1, and I mean, seriously, I mean, if you find $1 on the street, that's like a miracle, right?
I know.
But I was like, $16. I'm like, I'm rich beyond imagination. It
Absolutely.
was really a lot of money to find on the ground. I mean, I find pennies, right? You find a penny, you're like,
Yeah.
wow, a penny, wow, I'm rich. I don't know, that's what I do. But
No, yeah, absolutely. But to
you know,
find and to find one of each,
yeah,
you know? like really like
It
the.
was amazing. It was
That's awesome.
amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Now I'll interject something before it. Now I've given you my number of the day, because I did think, okay, well, hang on to 16. That must have
I
something to
gotcha.
do with something.
Yeah.
But the so there's an interesting time. It's happening this very moment. I am now out singing. I'm not a professional. I'm an amateur, but my mother was a singer, so I'm out singing at retirement homes because I met a piano player who's, it's a long story and I'm not going to give you all the details, but I met this piano player and he does this and he said, well, I'll give you a few dollars to join me. I said, sure. I know all the words anyway. Why not? So I'm
Yeah.
doing this with him, and I knew, and I like him very much. He's very nice and his wife is very nice. They're very, very nice people. But I knew right off the bat, I was like, oh dear, Catholic and Republican, these are not usually the people I roll with, but I'm fine if he's fine. So anyway, he's been trying, the poor thing, he's trying to get me some help through his Catholic church. And I finally had to say, John, I'm not Catholic. It's awful nice of you to be so supportive, but I don't know if they want to see me, because I'm not really your people. But anyway, so as I was doing laundry, here's the end of that story. As I was doing the laundry, I was thinking to myself, all right, how do we, this is a good opportunity, I don't get to have to be diplomatic in this way, and try to keep a friend, and move in this direction. So this will be good practice for me, and I think for him too. So I just
Yeah.
said the other day, I'm happy to talk. I'm not Catholic, but I'll talk with you anyway. So that's all it was rolling as I was folding, socks and t-shirts. I was thinking, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then I clicked onto you. So
Well,
and then
here
I'm
we
on a
go.
microphone, and I was like, oh my God, this is what's going on here. All right, that's
Yeah.
the end of my
We're
story.
just we're
Although
just
I've got more.
and you just a word that the Tao uses a lot is yield and surrender.
Yield.
Right?
Ah.
Yield. And so like the idea of like one yielding to not only the thoughts or the actions or like you yielded and surrendered to he's a Christian or Catholic and a Republican, and it's like he's doing this thing, but you're still doing it, and it's not causing anything. Like you're just
Good
allowing
point.
that to unfold. So number 16,
16.
it's
Yeah, what's
it's
that mean?
actually one of my it's one of my favorites because the title is Stillness and Integration, and this talks
Hmm.
about that moment, and I'm going to read it in a moment, but I'm going to
Okay.
give you a little primer. It talks about that every action that we take, every active time in our life, eventually will um, become still. Like that time will become a
Hmm.
still moment. And what it says, and like I said,
Well,
I'm
that
going to read it.
sounds kind of sad. I don't know.
No, it's good
All
because the
right.
thing is if you constantly are moving,
Ah.
you will not be able to integrate the lesson. And so the
Oh.
stillness is really important. It's a
Oh.
really important part of maturing, actually.
Oh. Well, now there's a lesson I could have learned a long time ago. I'm just picking that up now. Maturity. I've been working
Yeah.
on my
So
maturity.
I'm going to go ahead and read this.
Okay.
It's only going to take about a minute or so. It's probably 100 words.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Take your
Being
time.
being empty of mind is of the utmost importance, and it is to be guarded with fervor. We have all seen states of action arise, and always beyond it returns stillness. When any state of action is complete, it naturally returns to stillness. This allows integration of what arose from action, which is the natural cycle of maturation. If stillness and integration cannot be achieved, constant action will lead to anxiety and
Mm.
wild movements. Yielding to stillness makes one impartial, and all particular things fall away. Then, when it is time to die, one can be impartial to that as well.
Oh, wow. That's wow. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you
No,
done?
that's done. That's it.
Oh, that's it. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's good because yeah, death, right? Whew.
Yeah, that's a
Every
big one.
once in a while that rolls around. You're like, whoa, that must be something. But
Yeah.
but um but I'm not really. Personally, I'm just, I'm perfectly fine with it. I mean, I'm not afraid of death in the slightest. What I am
Good.
afraid of is excruciating pain, like falling down the stairs,
Yeah.
and like having, I don't know, both legs broken. Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow, and then be there for 12 days before somebody finds you. I mean, doesn't that sound terrible? That's the story. But yeah. And I think, wow, that sounds really bad. It's not the death.
It's not the death. No,
Yeah.
it's funny you should mention that. When back in 2014, I got diagnosed with MS.
Mm.
And I
Oh,
was in the
sorry.
hospital and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And I thought I was dying. And
Yeah.
I was kind of okay with it. I
Fine
was
with
like,
it.
okay, we're
Right.
good. No big deal.
Right.
Now, I have 23 years clean and sober, and so I had
Oh, good
near
for
death
you.
experiences when I was younger as well.
Wow.
And I feel very much like I'm living on a lot of borrowed time.
Mm. That.
But when I was in the hospital with these MS sort of symptoms and things, and we didn't know what it was, I
Yeah.
thought I was dying. And when they came in and they told me that I had MS, or I had a diagnosis of MS, that was the kicker. That was the thing that was like, oh shit, now I might not be able to walk. Like that's a
Yeah. Right.
completely
That's
different
right.
thing than dying.
Right.
Dying is easy.
Right. Comedy is hard,
You know what I mean?
as they say. I don't know if you
So,
know that
so,
phrase.
so, so, like, and just like you're saying, like that pain, that torture, and not walking for me would be
Yes.
torture.
Yeah, oh, I know. But I saw somebody in a wheelchair the other day, and I thought the exact same thing you thought. I thought, oh, thank God that's not me. Thank God that's not me. But I did think, yeah, but if it were me, then you live there
You live there. Absolutely.
with other people that are there. And you know what I think fundamentally, the bottom line is support. So if you've got support from others who are going through something similar,
Mm-hmm.
then then you're okay. You muddle through, as they say, right?
And
Maybe.
as we're talking about this 16, like when we think about these two aspects of living, right? Action, or like
Stillness.
action, and then stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I actually my MS came about, while I was running my production company, and because it's stressful.
Yes, of course.
Lots of stuff, and I had to shut it down because I couldn't continue in a path that was so stress inducing.
Oh boy. Right. Oh geez. Now that's breaking my heart.
And then,
Not.
but that brought about stillness, and now, like, I mean, here I am 10 years later. I do not take meds for my MS.
Wow.
And I've only had very small, insignificant flare-ups. And a lot of that is because of that stillness. Because of that ability for me to integrate.
Oh,
So much of my life when I was younger was full of action, action, action. And
right.
now my life has stillness in it. And I
Right.
mean, I've acquired a home in the last year and a half.
Wow.
I've
Wow.
done all of these things.
Wow.
And I do not have a job,
Right. Right.
or a production company, or like I just do what I do, and that stillness has really guided me to where I am,
Yeah.
without me having to embrace the idea of identity, right? Like
Well, and
who I'm supposed to be.
that's right. And I was going to say, all that when you're younger, I kind of think all that stuff for all of us, it sort of supports the
Absolutely.
ego,
Yep.
and you need ego. There's nothing wrong
Yes.
with ego, but there's a time to let it go too. We all needed to be in fifth grade too, but there's a
Right.
time to go to sixth grade.
Absolutely.
And you must go, as they say. And if you try to stay in fifth grade forever, you're not going. It's not going to work out. So that's not so bad. And I had a similar thing happen. And first of all, I think creativity is at the core. And clearly, you have done it with this, whatever these things are called. I don't even know what they're called.
I just call it
Microphone
a talk.
talking to you. All right, sure. But and that's the base of it. So here's a really short story, I promise, because
Please.
mine are too really long. But this is interesting. So for about so I have background in the mental health world. Don't even get me started. But
No.
and I've been doing that for whatever 20 or 100 years, something in between there. And and there was a fellow who I liked, who was a friend of mine with schizophrenia, who I knew since I was a teenager. And so since I was filming, I was like, well, let me talk to him, and very open, really blah, 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 before people were. So this is what made him kind of interesting, very interesting, I think. So this was a long time ago. This was before people would talk about this stuff. You couldn't find someone to talk about this, you really couldn't at the time. So anyway, I tried to do a documentary about him, but I couldn't get funding. And plus I was getting other work that was paying. But here's the point. So I said to him, but he was still in my world all the time because I was doing mental health stuff. So anytime that I was being paid for a project and he was there, I'd say, hey, tell me what you think about this thing that we're at. And have him weigh in. And I thought, well, I'll just put the footage in the can and we'll see. So that's what I did for 20 years. And I thought about throughout these 20 years, I've thought, there's a story here for any ordinary producer. He's sort of easy. He's easy. He's got all the things that you'd want, right? If you were going to do something. But I didn't like any of them because I thought they were all exploited, not only exploited him, but I also didn't like they all seemed very cliche. And I hope you're following me so far. But
I
was like, oh wow, is a person with schizophrenia who can walk and talk. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I'm bored already, even saying it.
I know,
So
right.
I was like, I didn't want to do any of this stuff. And I saw some things out there that were okay. I'm not going to, take away from stuff I'd seen, but not getting it, not missing the point. Anyway, here's the point of this story. So then 5 years ago, bam, out of the blue, my mother died, which was very sad. Except she had a great death that we all want. She just died in her sleep one night, minding her own business, So
that's the one you want, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know. And I remember thinking, good for you. Good for you. That's the way to do it. But anyway, it wasn't until that. And so, listen, I took it really hard. It was terrible. Still am, right? But it's terrible. However, and here's my point. However, that did make me see this fellow differently. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, that's how to tell his story. I'm leaving out the details of how, because I'm not going to tell anybody that, but I didn't know how for 25 years, how to tell it until my mother died. And that's the point. So without that tragedy, I never would have got what I think is the answer that I've been trying to find for 25 years.
Yeah. And it's important to find the proper way to tell those stories. I mean, I did a series, a podcast series called Recover Yourself. So as I mentioned, I got 23 years clean and sober, and Recover Yourself is all about this idea of what is it we're recovering to?
That's a great question.
Not what we're recovering from, right? Because
that's
the idea
so
of
good.
recovering, right? So, and one of the people that I interviewed was a guy with schizophrenia that did not take medication.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when we start talking about recovery, we're talking about a bigger concept. We're talking about this really kind of openness. And it's like, yes, so many people can look at schizophrenia and say, well, you have to take meds. Just like they say that for me in my MS. Like, well, what medication are you on? And when you tell them you're not on medication, they dismiss you as having a light case. Well, you don't have a bad case. Right. And it's just like, well, maybe because I use stillness, maybe because I don't engage in a stressful life, maybe because I, maintain a very specific diet, maybe those are the things that are helping me. And it's like, well, because we have no studies to say that those things
That's
work,
right.
Then we can't actually tell you that works. Well, who is going to fund a study that says your diet can help you not take medication?
Right.
Who's going to fund that?
Right.
And in those sorts of engagement, and just like with you have to figure out how to tell the story. And as an artist, you're going to tell the right story. You're not going to necessarily tell the profitable story. As a
That's
business
right.
person, you're going to tell the profitable
That's right.
story, which is going to be exploitative.
Yeah, that's
It's,
right. Right.
like if you were
It has to
going
be.
from this action space, but you had to be still probably for decades
That's right.
in order for you to receive the answer of how to tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree, and I understand, and you've come along at a right time. Thank you very much for sharing this information. This is really, really helpful. Helpful, very helpful.
Well, I'm really glad.
There's more I could share, but I keep thinking to myself, am I like live on a radio or something?
You are live on a radio.
I'm on live on a radio or something, right? Well. So yeah, I know, and you would think that, yeah, but I'm really an open book usually. But then I thought, well, I should not
Yeah,
say
no,
all
like
kinds of things.
I'm really so like I have a funky timer on here, so I don't know if you can see the timer on your end, but it probably
Oh,
says about 7 minutes or whatever left.
yes, yes.
But
Oh, should
mine
I
only
hang
says
up?
2.
What's that?
So, but mine only says 2 minutes. So you are gonna get cut out, but I can drop you off. I really appreciate talking with you, Bonita.
Oh gosh, yes, yes. And I just don't want to keep you because
No,
honestly, I
there's
don't have the
nothing to keep
foggiest
me from.
idea.
This is what I'm here for.
This is really good. You have been really helpful this morning. Not only did I finish the laundry, but it's been nice having coffee with you.
Yes, I loved it. It was
Yeah,
it
it's
was so
just
beautiful. I love
terrific.
and from Massachusetts to Chicago, we're covering the eastern end.
Yeah, yeah, right. Right. Well, I hope that you will get in touch. I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to say it on
Yeah,
the.
I'll what I'll do is I'll just send a message on this app. You'll find it eventually, and then we'll be in touch.
Okay, all right.
And I'm here 6 a.m. Central Time every morning, Monday through Friday, usually doing this. So
Oh, all right. Well, I'll see if I can figure out how to just listen in and let
yeah,
somebody else talk.
either way.
But it's very, really, really interesting, and I'm going to give that. I have to get myself to that stillness. That's not. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to, but
Well, yeah, like don't shit on yourself.
yeah, that too. I know, I know, I know. I know. As when my mother was older, she used to, she was older, right? So she was like in 85 and 86 and 87. And she used to sometimes say, oh, I did that things wrong. I did things wrong. I'd say, hey, be nice to my mother. Then she'd laugh, which was very nice, right? So, yeah. Okay, well,
I say that to my friends all the time. Be nice to my
yeah.
buddy.
That's good. Yeah, then
Yeah,
and she liked that a lot. I use that
that's
now.
good.
I use that with my friend John, now the piano player. So, you know,
Yeah.
because
Those Christians, they can get down on themselves, man.
we had to figure this out. And I said, "Hey, be nice to my friend. Be
That's
nice to
good.
my friend." All right. Well,
All right, love. Thank you so much. Yeah, you just dropped off. So I appreciate you coming up and chatting with me about 16. So if anybody else wants to pick a number between 1 and 81, definitely join me. And I know I got a message from Catherine. Catherine, I don't know when like when I start, I just start. I know that's and I don't know how quickly the announcements go out that I've come online. But yeah, that's just kind of how it rolls. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about number 16, stillness and integration, because like I said, it is one of my favorites. When I was doing the translation of this, I wanted it to talk about that, like the line, if stillness and integration cannot be achieved, constant action will lead to anxiety and wild movements. We're coming to a time now. Bonita lived in a time probably where things were always, and I did too. I mean, I'm almost 50, so here we are, like living in a time like in the 80s where everything was about doing, everything was about action, action, action. And we have been praised for doing more. And I know when I was a kid, stillness, if you were to stop doing something, you would be chastised for that. What are you doing? Everybody, like, that would be, I mean, it's so ubiquitous, the idea of what are you doing, right? What is it you are doing? Like, it's when you meet somebody, like, that's what you ask them. You ask them, what are you doing? What is the action that you're taking in your life? What is the motion? What is the movement that you're making in your life right now? What are you doing? How are you existing, right? What are you doing to make a living? And it's interesting because we were talking about my MS and other things like that. And it's like, well, the stillness in my life is actually the thing that guides me more than anything. Now when people ask me what I'm doing, I'm always confused at what to say because I'm not doing anything. Like, everything is happening and I am doing, and lots of things are but I'm not in control of it, and I'm not purposely going out and doing. A lot of it is just happening, because it has to. The action of this moment is just what this moment requires. And I'll sit on my couch, and then the next thing I know, I'm outside pulling weeds. I didn't make the choice to do that. It just started happening. I mean, a lot of times when I was younger, it would be like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then you will yourself up to get it done. That's the action. And that's the anxiety and the wild movements. The wild movements are like, oh, these things have to happen. And when you have nothing happening in your life, when there's nothing that is on your list of things to do, wild movements start to take shape. Right? Wild movements like addiction, or wild movements like making choices that don't have to be made, or whatever, like doing things that it's a difficult sort of space to be in when you have these wild movements. Yielding to stillness makes one impartial. Let's look at that for a second. Yielding to stillness makes one impartial. And all particular things fall away. In the Tao, when we talk about particular things, it's the manifestation. It is the stuff that we're surrounded by. Being empty of mind is of the utmost importance, is the opening line to this. And as we relate it to this idea of yielding to stillness of the mind, being empty of mind is of the utmost importance, and it is to be guarded with fervor. That's how this starts. And when we look at that, it's like, wait, how can you guard something with fervor? And that thing you're guarding is being empty of mind. Isn't that contradictory? And yes, it is. And it was written in order to be contradictory. That doesn't mean that there's judgment involved. It just means that, you're not going to be empty of mind. But to attempt to do that, attempt to be in a space where you're empty of mind, is a great exercise in just like how and who you are. This is why I talk about the idea of recovering to who you are. Because when you're empty of mind, you are closer to that. To be empty of mind, you are able to touch whatever, right? God or Tao or your spirit, or you're able to touch those things because particular things fall away. The particularness, the particularity of what you're eating, the particularity of where you're sitting, the particularity of what you're looking at, what you're smelling, what you're hearing, all of that falls away. And now there's stillness. There isn't, oh, it's a sunny day. Oh, it's a rainy day. Oh, I'm in my home. Oh, I'm in my apartment. Oh, I owe mortgage. I owe rent. I am watching this. I am filling my life with that. All of those particulars create action because those things are in motion as well as you. But when you can not be under the influence of all of those things, when you can allow those things to fall away, then you can be more than your specific body, right? Your specific identity. Bonita and I were talking about identity, right? Like when you're young, you need that, right? That's what builds so that you can dismantle, right? When we're born, we're under the influence, and we start our lives by building a frame of reference. That frame of reference is not something that we're taught. Frame of reference is something that we pick up along the way. And when we have a bad frame of reference, and many of us in these generations that are alive right now, many of us picked up a frame of reference that our actions equal our value and our ability to be accepted by the crowd or by others and other things like that. Now, when we can achieve stillness of our mind, we can see, oh, wait, maybe actions and values aren't aligned. Maybe I am valuable regardless of my actions, which is true. And maybe we don't have to constantly fill our lives with action. And when we do that, we're able to be calm. Our minds are able to calm down and sort things easier. That's this natural cycle of maturation, right? When any state of action is complete, it naturally returns to stillness. Now, if you want to fill your life with more and more and more and more action, which is what I was doing when I was diagnosed with MS, because I was trying to run this production company. Bonita talked about doing a documentary. I was doing a documentary on trans people in ministry back in 2014. I wanted to do this, and I was going out for a fund, and I dedicated all this time to raising the funds to do that documentary. It failed. I was in debt, and it failed. Like, I was coming to the end of my funding cycle, and that's when I ended up in hospital for my MS. I was forced to be still. For a week, I was in the hospital. And so that stillness helped me integrate what had arisen.
Hello?
Rolando, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
I just wanted to get familiar with what is MS because I'm kind of new to this thing. So, like, what is MS?
Oh, it's just another stupid disease.
Okay.
You know, it's it just attacks the nervous system, the myelin sheath. So if you have a vacuum and like you plug it in, if you were to scrape off the plastic around the cord, the information, the electricity wouldn't run to the vacuum, and the vacuum wouldn't run right. It would just run intermittently or whatever when you moved it in certain ways and stuff. And that's essentially what would happen to my body and my nervous system. So I can't walk, or I can't move my limbs or my muscles. I can't get information from my brain to my limbs and my body.
That sounds like a pretty challenging thing to have, like, especially in this day and age. How were you able to, like, overcome the whole thing? Like, and you still have the problem where it happens still, or it's like you already overcome it?
Well, I mean, depending on who you talk to, doctors would say that it's a lifelong thing, and I'll have it forever, So I manage it with diet, meditation, and Tao, and yeah. So this show, just so you know, is Tao of the Day. What I do is I invite people up to kind of chat a little bit, and then pick a number between 1 and 81 as part of. Have you heard of the Tao Te Ching?
No.
Pardon?
No, I have not heard.
No. Okay, the Tao Te Ching is an ancient text. It was written about 600 BC, and presumably by a guy Lao Tzu, and that consists of 81 chapters, 81 short chapters, 150 to 250 words, sometimes even less. And what I like to do is invite you up to kind of see what's going on in your life and then ask you to pick a number between 1 and 81. Are you interested in doing that?
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right. So what's going on with you these days?
Well, right now, I just got back into the country after being gone for 8 months. I went to the Caribbean. And right now I'm looking for jobs, and it's a kind of stressful experience because I mean, I'm used to getting my job within like a couple of days. It's been now almost 2 weeks, and like it's like a little stressful, but I'm still like still going forward and still being persistent. And I'm confident I'll get something soon. And
Okay, cool.
had a lot of, I mean, I also have mental challenges too, but I'm learning how to manage it a lot better. And I have a really good support system, like good doctors and stuff. So I'm still adjusting to this, like, back to reality type of thing because when I was in the Caribbean, I was like well, I could say it was like a fairy tale world in a way because everything was like a lot easier per se, but I messed it up. So that's a whole nother.
You messed it up.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story for a whole another
Whole
day.
nother
But
day.
basically, things was super easy, and I was like, you know what, I'm doing what I want. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's start there, and we'll pick a number between 1 and 81 and see if we have any guidance here.
Okay. Oh wait, sorry.
What number?
Oh, let's see, 17.
72?
17.
17. Oh, interesting. Um, number 17 is entitled Of Masters and Leaders. And this is about the idea that when we have masters around us, there isn't a need for someone to lead us because we all are inspired to act in the best way possible, more or less. So, in the time of the great masters, there were no leaders. Then, those whom the people loved led the way. After having created the position, the people feared their leaders. Then they despised them. Having created leaders, their faith in Tao was diminished. Having become a leader, their trust in the people was diminished. When there are great masters, there are no leaders. She works day and night and says nothing about it. When the work is done, the people say, amazing. We did it all by ourselves.
Oh,
What are your thoughts on that?
well, sorry. Let me clear my throat. Um, I agree. I mean, masters, people tend to follow masters, and when they follow them, they like kind of suit to suit, where they like kind of just get in line in a way because the master is like such a good like influence. But
Yeah.
until something happens where like they don't agree or something, then they start hating the master, and then it's like, oh, he's trying to control me, this and that. So it turns into like whole argument. But the difference with leaders is like for the team. They're not trying to control nobody. They're not trying to have everyone follow everything they do. Is like a leader more. It's like a guidance in a way, and a master is more controlling.
Well, I would. So in the Tao Te Ching, the master is someone who's a master of Tao, not a master of people.
Mm.
And so that what you're saying is correct, but the language is a little different. So in terms of a great master is a great master of Tao, someone who is who supports the underlying nature of the universe, not their own ideas. A leader in this context is someone who wants to lead people to a certain place. So what you were saying, right, like the master, when you said a master, in the terms of like thinking of a master from the concept of slaves or other things like that, what ends up happening is we start looking at a master as someone who is overbearing or overpowering. But when we talk about master in the context of Tao, that is not that's not the framework. However, you're absolutely right. The leader is someone who is going eventually, like if you may be inspired by somebody, and then you could go to them and ask them their advice. And just like it says, having created leaders, their faith in Tao is diminished. And your faith in Tao is really your faith in yourself. And so when we align with leaders, we lose faith in ourselves. Are you making furniture? What's going on over there?
My mom is packing away dishes.
Oh, okay. It was just got really, yeah. So yeah, having created leaders, his trust in the people was diminished. So when we have a leader, they don't trust the people, and they start making rules, so the people will follow those rules.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree with the
Yeah.
whole thing. I'll probably just have to study Tao a little bit more to be more
Well,
like
there's nothing to study. I
familiar.
mean, it's just like, yeah, it's like, well, like, yeah, like there's things like the words and stuff, but that's what
Yeah,
I'm
it's good.
doing.
Not study it, but like you know what I mean. Like
Yeah, to
get used to
understand
the
it.
term of like saying in a way.
Right, yeah, like there's just different ways of expressing things. And it's very understandable that like the way that you expressed it, where it was just like a master. Nobody wants a master. We'd rather have a leader, right? We'd rather have somebody to move forward and to be pleasant with. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, but yeah, so yeah, in the time, yeah, this is a nice one.
Well, everyone, my name is Orlando. I'm about to head out. Follow me.
Thank you so much,
I'm gonna be
Rolando.
doing my own little podcast and stuff soon.
Cool,
Um,
sounds good. We'll be
so
on the lookout for you.
all right, have a good day, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. So in the time, I'm gonna go ahead and like just go over this one more time because it was very loud. I did have a message, Cecilia. Thank you so much for like I sometimes I don't want to tell people how to do their thing, but that was pretty that was loud. Um, in the time of the great masters, there were no leaders. Then those whom the people loved led the way, and that's a big part. Those whom the people loved led the way. So you love someone, and because you love them and their ideas, you have them lead the way. Now, this was years ago. This was before leaders ever existed, right? It was just like everybody was a great master, and then someone doubted themselves, and they doubted themselves, and so they asked someone else um, for advice. After having created the position, so once you ask someone for advice, you are creating the position of a leader because you're saying, "Hey, I want your idea of what I should do." After having created the position, the people feared their leaders, then they despised them. This is just the natural cycle of things. Like, it wasn't right away, but once you created a leader, all of a sudden you start realizing, wait, if that leader starts giving me advice that benefits them, like, I don't want to, I want to be in control of my own life again. I want to get control back of my own life. I don't want to have to ask somebody else what I should be doing with this. I just want to trust myself. But then you've already created the leader there in place, and there's nothing you can do about it now. Now, like everybody else, like you have to be able to step away. Then they despise their leader because they're in too many aspects of our lives. The person we asked for advice years ago now is just getting all up in my grill telling me how I'm supposed to be. And I'm supposed to listen to that? Like our leader, I mean, if we look out at the world now, our leaders are like marketing and advertising and like they're the ones that are telling us how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to act, what we're supposed to have, and what path we're supposed to get on. And Cecilia, I know, like, you don't agree with any of that. I don't agree with any of that. And we have to do it on our own. And everyone, every time that we come out and we tell somebody that we're just living our own little lives out here, doing what we want to do, everyone's just like, how can you do that? And like, we have no answer. There is no how. It's just you do it. You live this way because you are aligned with Tao. You trust yourself. Having created their leaders, their faith in Tao was diminished. And generation after generation, it's continually diminished until it's crazy to have faith in Tao and faith in yourself. Spring Blossom, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm just
Good.
listening to this, and it's a very good lesson.
Yeah. I really, the two that we read today, which were 16 and 17, like Stillness and Integration and Of Masters and Leaders. And this one, like really, I really love the idea that, you know, like a
We're all
master.
sovereign.
Go on.
We're all sovereign, and
Yeah,
sovereignty is something that we have within us, and all our answers are within us.
that's right.
And we can ask for advice, but we don't have to take it, and it can give us a different perspective. But it can't be something that is ruling us. We cannot be subject to another person's thought about us,
Right.
ourselves.
That's right.
You know, we have to come to the conclusion within. And doing that makes you a sovereign being. Well, you know, you are sovereign unto yourself. The way you feel, the way you think, the way you speak is all very important. And if we can just make that more divine in a way that we don't get in the way of other people's sovereignty.
Right. And that's why, you know, when I talk about the Tao, I always say it's a way of it's a guide of living a more reasonable life. Because
Absolutely.
that's the whole point. Not asking other people to give up their sovereignty. Not asking other people to give up who they are for you, for your
Yeah,
comfort, for your because you think they should be more accepting of other people. Because you think they should be more, well, shouldn't you be more accepting of them? Like,
exactly. And that's the lesson.
yeah.
Because, you know, I've had a beautiful young person following my instruction. And then I realized that she, and if you hear what I hear, this is a transitioning that this young person is traveling. And what was interesting was that it was a two-way street. She was explaining to me the process of transitioning.
Hmm.
It was extremely difficult for her. I feel so much in my heart that what she had to do was almost um, questioning her ability to embrace that soul journey, if you like.
Yeah.
Um, 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 you know, I felt completely at sea in anything I could offer, except to direct that back to it. It's up to you. It's up
Yeah.
to the other person. They have to find their way through that mist, and I can remind them of all the things they've said in the past, and try and bring back the reality of what I understood them to be.
Yeah. And
But that's it.
being able to create a space in which
Mm,
they can question,
yeah,
being able to create a space in which they can have the space to explore the uncomfortable nature of being.
Indeed.
Because being is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What we have tried to do over the last couple millennia is create a life for everybody, create life, create a sense of being that is predictable. But the reality is it's not.
It's not.
And if we could embrace the uncomfortable reality that we do not know,
Yep.
and our actions will unfold and we will be held all along the way.
Yep.
If we can embrace that, embrace the faith in the fact that we're going to be held, not this ridiculous, well, God's going to protect me kind of, like just blanket thing, but just really embrace the uncomfortable nature of being and be able to embrace the fact that, yes, one day you're going to die.
And be grateful for the joy of
For
being
this
alive.
moment that there's a Tao that states life is a gift received from Tao, and everything is sustained in support of that gift. That means your life is a gift that you receive from Tao, and I am being sustained by Tao in support of the gift of your life. In your life, I do not have consciousness. I am just a way for you to experience your life, the gift of your life. Now, my life is a gift received from God, from Tao. And you are being sustained in support of that gift of my life. And you, in my life, do not have consciousness. You are only a way for me to experience my life.
Myself, yeah. And that makes us all one.
That's right. Just like this person that you have going through transition. Like
Yeah.
the struggle that you feel to connect comes within you because they are simply here to express to you something that you have to see. And their life is a gift received from Tao, and you are being sustained to support them. And how they hear you is not going to be necessarily what you intend. How they see you isn't going to be how you planned it. It's not about you. It's about them.
Hey, Martin John, you're very clever to come up with all this and reaffirm to me that everything's fine.
It's absolutely fine. There is
Oh,
no way.
yeah.
I have a piece of paper right here, and I'm going to read it to you. It's something that I wrote a while ago, and I haven't really explored it too much, but it's just been it's on a scrap of paper that I wrote one morning, and it says, I couldn't possibly fathom what you're saying, but I can understand what I'm hearing.
Right.
And that is something I wrote one morning. And the idea is that, of course, I can't fathom what you're saying because you are saying it from your perspective and from your life. And I never lived your life.
Yeah.
But I can understand what I'm hearing. And what I'm hearing is me. And
That's
if
so deep.
if it upsets me, then I get to go back and look at it, not be mad at you. Because I don't know what you're saying. But I do know what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing that you don't like me. Well, okay, I'm hearing that you don't like me. Where in me does that exist? And that's what we're talking about here when we start talking about the idea that like my life is a gift received from Tao. You're being sustained so that I could live this life. What is
Mm,
this life? What is this moment? What is this feeling? What is it that I'm experiencing right now? And that's me. And you are me. Right? Like we do like those identities, those you and me, that's all just manifestation. That's all just out here in the
construction.
world. Yeah, it's all just construct.
Construction. And this is the thing about our persona. Um, we create our own persona to deal
Right.
with the world around us and to deal with other people's personas.
Right.
We we have to function in a world, so therefore we need to have a persona that engages in the world in a peaceful manner, hopefully, in a way that is generous and kind, in a way that can engage with people without argument, without making anybody else suffer, if possible. People will suffer anyway. We can say what we want and people might suffer, but it won't be our problem because we haven't intentionally wished anyone harm.
Yeah. And if we did,
Yeah,
then that will rebound upon oneself.
exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
And Tao is patient. And so it
Yeah,
might not rebound upon itself for generations.
yeah, true.
And it
And
it's
that's the work that we
that's
do
the
in
work.
in a
Right.
plane.
That's the work that I think is happening right
Mm,
now.
yeah,
Is so many people are dealing with generations
absolutely.
of
For
intentional harm.
instance, I can tell you, my ancestors came to this country from Scotland. I'm in Australia.
Yeah.
They were early settlers. Now, Australia was invaded by England in 1877. My ancestors were here in 1823 in Tasmania. Possibly a white coat or red coats, they used to call them, soldiers were raping Indigenous girls after
Hmm.
they just slaughtered all their families. So these girls would be taken back to camp and become pregnant. Often would the baby would end up on the mainland. So there was a whole lot of Indigenous people who survived by moving over to the land because they killed them all in Tasmania, supposedly, which is a lie. But anyway, sorry. Um, so anyway, my ancestors came back from that far back. In 1856, they had a shop in a little country town, a mining town in central Victoria. And I went and lived there for 21 years and walked the landscape and inquired about my ancestors from that era. And looking through the archives, I'd got a job at the museum archives and looked through the records, finding that my grandmother was actually born in the town. And I had 3 generations of people who'd lived in that town. And this was after I'd been in England and Scotland and followed my ancestry over there, and sat with ancient yew trees asking them for guidance, etc. So a very interesting life of experiences, bringing me back to the point that I was trying to make, which I've forgotten now.
And that's fine. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Do you want to
yeah.
pick a number?
4.
Number
I
4.
don't know why that came up.
Number 4 is short. It's entitled The Void.
Mm.
And it just says Tao is the void. And the void is within everything.
Yeah.
It as it relates to what is perceptible, everything is mostly void. As the origin of everything, it
Yeah,
is hidden within every particular thing.
absolutely.
The master knows it is even the source of God.
Oh, lovey.
And yet others still go on searching.
Yeah. So I call it the fact that we have all atoms making up the body we are vessels
That's
in,
right.
and that the space between the atoms is what we're looking for.
That's right. And it's what we are.
It's what we are.
And
It's what we are.
and it's what everything is. And as it says
Everything
here, it is even the source of God, and it is the
is.
source of you. It is all things. What is there to look for? Why do we ask the question, am I not enough? Because we are even
Yeah.
it's not that we're God, we are the source of
Yeah.
God. We are more than. We
Yeah.
created that.
We
That
created.
void is within all things. That
We're
void is go on.
constantly creating.
Yes, constantly.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why our mental health is so important for us to work out how we can clean it up and make the voice come through each individual as we awaken as a species, because we're in trouble if we don't start looking deep in each one of us individually, finding that void.
I'm going to take that in for a moment because I wanna be able to respond to that, but it's hard to because it's a hard step to take
Yep,
to
I know.
to move
I'm so
into.
angry.
I
I'm
know,
so
I
angry,
know, I
Martin.
know, and I can feel that, and when we talk about all these things, there is a big dilemma when you say we're in trouble. You need to look at yourself. You know what I mean? Like not you personally, but like when
Yeah.
it is stated we're in
Help me with
trouble.
this, Martin. I need to get this working out, because I
This is the
understand.
thing. Like remember, it's a really tough thing. Like we look way back at the beginning
It's my
of
passion. I can feel it in my body. It's all
yes,
alive at the moment with this passion.
yes,
And
to
I
wake
and
up.
yeah, I know that the presentation ain't right.
Right. So we
That
want to settle into that discomfort.
yeah.
Right? We want to be able to settle into that discomfort and recognize that it's okay to be uncomfortable. And the thing is like we often can feel overwhelmed because we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We don't know how, like, I can see the answer, and yet I can't articulate it. I can't, and that's kind of what Tao is looking at. Tao
Mm.
looks at this idea of like, don't forget this. Don't forget this about you. Because you, like, the path that you're currently on, let's say started over 2,000 years ago. Let's say Jesus and Buddha and
Hey, what about going back to Egypt? Maybe there we start
yeah.
with all the
Well,
women in the
like
temples
those are
and the
right. So
priestesses.
right, all of that kind of stuff, all of those things, right? Like those were relational, and those were and it's very, when we start looking at the evolution of the what I would consider the spirit brain, right? we
Yeah,
we
yeah.
we have the masculine frontal lobe, which is logic. We are currently coming to the end of our ability to exploit logic. Would you
Hmm.
agree?
Yes,
with
indeed.
with AI, with all of this stuff, we have actually taken logic and passed it off to another entity, AI,
Indeed. Thank you.
right?
Yes.
And so because we have taken logic to its end, we now have to develop a new brain, if you will, a new kind of mode of working. So when we were first coming onto the planet, We had to deal with survival. That's the gut brain. Then we
mm,
had to deal with relationships, because now that we can survive for a little while, we need relationships. But we don't only need relationships amongst each other. We need relationships with the earth. We need relationships with the sky. We need relationships with story and plant and all. We need just, it's all relationship.
mm,
Eventually, we took those relationships and we had to make them work within logic. That's the frontal lobe. So we went from the gut brain to the heart brain to the head brain. We are coming to the end of the maturation of the head brain, of the logic mind.
mm,
And we are starting to enter into what I would consider our first non-physical brain, which is the spirit brain. And that, again, hovers above our crown chakra. And this is all just speculation on my part. This hasn't been written about or anything. I just talk about this because it's obvious to me. Um,
mhm.
and um, and and the thing is that brain, our spirit brain, came online with Buddha, with Jesus,
Jesus.
Muhammad, right? With
Mm,
all of these,
mm,
like avatars, right? We welcomed the new spirit brain, and our spirit brain since then has been maturing in the background for us as a species, as a planet, because I believe that animals are addressing this as well.
right.
I don't believe it is just a human thing.
No.
And so as we start to, and remember, this has been online for 3,000 years.
Mm,
So you're just in your lifetime and in your lineage, you're entering this brain. Your children may not be as connected to consciousness as you are, because it doesn't work that way. It's like you come into this world with a spirit. That spirit has a certain
mm,
connection or has a fate to be connected to consciousness in a certain way. And your
mm,
anger and your fear is all still attached to logic, survival, and relationship, right? Like these older sort of modalities.
okay. Yep.
And but that's still healing that you need to do, because there is something within you. Maybe it's judgment about like not knowing this when you were younger. Maybe it's judgment about a certain frame of reference that you carry. I can't say at the moment, but it definitely has some. It is pointing to you, and it is looking at, well, there is a
Mm,
lack of understanding, and maybe it's frustration with that lack of
I'll,
understanding.
I'll tell you what the frustration can be. It's the motherhood that was denied me because my child was removed at birth.
Mm,
And I have no relationship with my son or my granddaughter or my great granddaughter because the son was raised in a family that was violated my relationship with him through through a construct called adoption.
yeah,
When they created this thing where they took thousands and thousands of babies off single girls because they weren't married.
right.
So I'm a survivor of
I do.
that.
I saw a documentary on that many years ago, about what was going on in
So
Australia and Tasmania and the
yeah,
oceanic region. So here's the, like, if I were to speculate,
please do.
you had no control over that. You
No.
did not get to have a voice. And by
Well,
you
I did
have,
have a voice. I did have a voice, and I said no, and they took him anyway.
right, you
And
didn't
that's
have a
my
voice that
anger.
mattered.
They they didn't care what I wanted.
Right,
They
no,
took
they
me
didn't.
away from him after 4 days after his birth, and I never got to hold him or breastfeed him. So they did that to me, and I can't get through the feeling of I anger about the way in which
Of
a
course.
world would do that to any young girl. It's just utterly cruel and satanic. If you know the way in which they treated that many of us that came through a system that did that, and um, that's satanic. And the women's movement didn't even support mothers that had this experience. They didn't even come to our rescue because it had already been designed to correct women's ideas of equality into the economics and the status of women was more important to them because they were from the academic, intellectual lesbian mob that started the women's movement, and they were already attuned with the elite.
Well,
So
they
we
had
fucked.
to be.
They,
They
they
didn't.
fucked.
Yeah,
They they fucked us up.
it's all a sham. It's all a sham
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the elite. You
yeah,
only got 10
yeah.
seconds left on my end, so please come back up
Mm-hmm.
once you drop, and we can continue to look at this if you'd like.
Well,
So yeah, you did get dropped off. I don't know. You might have to refresh. I don't know if you wanted to come back up. There we go. Okay. So we're gonna bring you back up. It's hard, because one, your entire identity revolves around this story and revolves around this. And so challenging this is not something that I am inclined to do too much because you hold on to it. So it defines so much of who you are. And, when we were talking earlier, the idea of I am being sustained in support of the gift of your life. That and those actions were being sustained in the support of the gift of your life. Now, of course, it is not a gift to have that happen. Of course, it is not good. Of course, it is not. It is nothing but pain. And that's all it's for. It is only to cause pain and profit, maybe, somewhere along the line. The feminist movement, has for years told. So I'm in the States. You may be able to hear that. The feminist movement has for a long time told specific women to sit down and wait until women get their rights, and then we can deal with you, right? So in the States, it was black women. We're going to, women wanted the right to work. Well, black women had been working all along. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about a job. It was about a specific job in a specific space in society. It wasn't about working, really. It was about working specific things that, the elite wanted. And so you're not going to get support for you, because you don't have time to organize. You don't have time to get together and make a, like you're living your life. You're living life. And so it's really difficult to, look out at movements because those are groups of people. Once again, those people are being sustained in support of the gift of your life. So all of that, we always have to come back to, this is my life. This is my experience. Your experience was, and like you said, you had a voice, but it wasn't listened to. So in your life, you didn't have a voice. You weren't able to dictate what happened. They took your child, and from that moment, that child was still with you. That child, energetically, they were still with you, just not physically. And that energy, I'm willing to bet you can put your hand on your solar plexus. You can breathe into your hand. You can connect with that child. Of course, it's not physical. And of course, it may make you cry. And I know you have a connection to that child because it's your child. You have a connection to your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. It's not physical. But as we've discussed, we don't need physicality. I'm going to read this again. Tao is the void. It's the emptiness. And the void is within everything, even your children and grandchildren. As it relates to what is perceptible, everything is mostly void. As the origin of everything, it is hidden within every particular thing. It is even hidden within you. In order for you to touch it, you have to find it. You have to be able to quiet your mind and feel. Not feel the emotions, but feel the subtlety, the connection that you have with your child. Of course it was bad. And of course your child may have had a horrible experience as well. That's theirs, not yours. Your experience is yours. This experience that you're having has built a frame of reference of how you relate to the world. And when you look out at the world and you say, you have to listen to me, you have to wake up, you have to do this, it relates to the actions of the policies and politics. It has to do with your not being heard. It has to do with what's going on within you. The master knows it is even the source of God. If you can touch God within yourself, then you can touch and communicate with your child. You might not be able to prove, like a phone call or a Zoom call, that you're actually making a connection, but with calm subtlety, you can feel that connection. That's because we are so enraptured by instant gratification, by seeing, by hugging, by holding, by talking to, by doing, like I always look at all of these social media things as like, look, you and I would have been able to communicate without the Noom Vibe app. We would have just had to have sat down and received that communication. Noom Vibe just makes it conspicuous. We can connect without it. When you say you're angry, I can feel that anger. I know it's there. And this last line here, although there are moments where you know the void, and and this is the great thing about the Tao. We don't have to be in that space. We don't have to be a master, but we can be good. We can be leaning towards being a master and adjust and be able to do all the things we need to do to continue to grow. We are not going to find a destination. You and I have talked about that before. And the last line here is, and yet others still go on searching. Right? The master knows it is even the source of God, and we can understand that. And yet others still go on searching. We both will go on searching as well. And when we ask the question, how can you do this? How could this be allowed to happen? This is searching. And this is searching, and it's a need for us to search within ourselves. Because we're not going to change the actions of others. We're not going to change the past. We're not going to overcome the policies and politics that have been built off of generation and generation and generation. And we are the victims of those things. But when we can wake up and we know we're not the victim of anything. We are here as we are. And this life was given to us. I talk about this idea of the pre-karmic buffet. And in the pre-karmic buffet, God or Tao and us, our spirit, enter into this big buffet. And one of the biggest problems with a buffet is it's all you can eat. And so you see these rows of food, right? You just see these, and you have plates, stacks of plates, and piles of food all over. Everything has a label, but you don't know what those labels are. This is your first time being able to experience something. This is the first time the spirit is going to be able to experience anything delicious that smells, and like all of the flavors, all of the things. And when we start scooping food onto our plate, we don't know how to read these labels. But these labels say things like racism, abuse, economic disparity, fear. And we're piling our food, our plates up with this delicious food. And when we go back to our table with these plates of amazing food, God comes over and he says, oh, okay, so you have fear next to gender inequality. All right. And you have economic disadvantage with this other thing. Okay, well, these are the things that you're going to experience in your life. And just like any food, unless it's been designed just for the pleasure, some things have acquired tastes. And we live our life trying to find out what about this experience that we decided to have is delicious. And we can take those Brussels sprouts and we can push them to the back of the plate year after year after year after year. But they're going to be there. And we got to figure out, what about this is delicious? It doesn't have to be, not everything is going to be an Oreo cookie. But what about this is delicious? What about this is showing me who I am? What about this did I choose? And this is hard because it's bitter. Yeah, it's bitter. It's real bitter. Still with me? You're muted. I don't know if you realize that. I don't know if... Are you... So I'm going to go ahead and read number 4 again. Sorry for those of you that... someone just was on and came off. I don't know, Spring Blossom, if what's going on. You're muted. I want to give you a little bit of time to respond. Someone just came up but dropped back off. If you want to come back up, I can switch out. Otherwise, so, all right. Well, Spring Blossom might have a call or something. So we're going to go ahead and continue. Thank you so much for listening to the Tao Te Ching and the Tao of the Day. I appreciate you guys coming up. And until next time. Well, let me kind of go through my regular... Cecilia just says it doesn't show Spring Blossom is up. She is up and she's muted. So I'm going to go ahead and bump her out. Because maybe something went funky. I don't know. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cecilia. All right. Well, yeah, we read number 4, number 4, 17, and 16 today. That was, oh, there's Spring Blossom again. Let's see if, I don't know what was going on.
My phone wouldn't let me
Hey,
join in.
what's that?
My phone went funny and wouldn't let me join. I was listening
Oh,
to everything you said, and thank you so much.
okay. I wasn't like it was like on my end you were here but muted, and I just thought maybe you muted yourself to listen, so I just like went ahead and just spoke, and so yeah.
I'm glad you did. I'm so glad you did, because I couldn't get on, and I thought, oh, he'll go off on some other, but you didn't. You kept on. It was so good. Thank you so much.
Okay, my pleasure. And I love you, and I'm so glad
I
that
know.
like living in that space, and like I'm really grateful for the life that you're living for us.
Yeah, vice versa.
Like we all have to go
Vice versa.
through experiences for everybody.
Yeah,
The fact that I went through my recovery experiences that I did puts that into the universe. And like when I was talking about like pre-karmic buffet, like that buffet, like there's certain things we have to go through. Like we are dealing with climate change as an entree, where
yeah.
climate change was just a side dish 40 years ago. Now it's an entree. Everybody has a little climate change on their plate. You have had to deal with someone taking your child away. And hopefully that's something that we don't have to experience anymore.
Well, I think the thing is that it's still going on,
It
and
is
that's,
still going on. Yep.
and that worries. Well, you know, I mean, the only avenue out is the awakening of our species. That's all I can see.
That's right. And, Tao is patient, and
Yeah,
it adjusts excess and deficiencies, and it will get adjusted. Whether or not that's going to happen for you to physically witness in this body, in this lifetime, has yet to be seen. However, know that like you are inspiring people to wake up, because
yeah.
Tao is working through you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let other people come now. See you soon. Next
Okay.
time.
Bye-bye. Yep.
Love you. Bye. Love you.
Love you. All right, we're going to get Auntie Sparkly up here, and if I can request that we do this, let's just... Auntie Sparkly, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, dear. What's going on with you today?
I'm doing all right.
Good. What number do you want to look at today?
Well, I want to look at the number 25.
25. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and read through 25. It's entitled, I Call It Tao. Before the manifestation of heaven, there is void. We were just talking about that with number 4. It is still and has no form. Inexhaustible, it reaches everywhere. It is at the core of everything. Since names became important, it has been called Tao. It flows among manifestation without resistance, inside, outside, conscious, and subconscious. Tao is great. Universes are great. Planets are great. Beings are great. These 4 are all great and follow the law of their principle. All beings follow their planet. Planets follow their universe. Universes follow Tao. Tao follows only its nature. What are your thoughts?
I think that, it speaks about, that Tao. I call it Tao, you say, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
said about nature, and you said something about, void.
Yeah. Before the manifestation of heaven. Remember, and in number 4, we say Tao is even the source of God. So before the
Yes.
manifestation of heaven, there is void. Void eventually creates heaven and God. It is still and has no form. It is nothing. And the
Mm-hmm.
moment that it has a thought of a thing, it starts to create. It creates heaven, it creates universes, it creates planets, it creates beings. And these things are great, and from there, we create our lives and the experiences that we have within our lives. And we
Mm-hmm.
can't do anything but follow the law of the principle, which means we follow the law of our planet. Our planet follows the law of the universe, and the universe follows the law of Tao, the law of nature, like you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We
Right.
can't do without nature. Just like Spring Blossom was saying, we have to wake up to be connected to, rather than trying to separate ourselves from everything and be in control of everything. We want to wake up to our connection to everything. Wake up to how we are part of everything, how you and I are connected. Tao flows amongst manifestation without resistance. It is like it said earlier in one of the verses, hidden within ourselves.
Yes, it is.
And when
And
we
I,
can
and
just,
I heard you say about heaven and God and the existence and everything. And I am a firm believer of Jesus Christ.
yeah,
And I believe in him. And I believe he made the heavens and earth.
yeah.
And
And, we could replace that Tao with God. I call it God. I mean, that's fine, whatever. It's not, or you call it Jesus. Jesus started, Jesus was born, you know. So, that's a thing.
mm-hmm.
It is at the core of everything. Since names became important, I call it Tao. Whatever. Call it whatever you want. Because it doesn't, when there was nothing needed a name. It just was. And then all of a sudden we started naming things and things started becoming separate.
I'm sorry about that. That was my aunt. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah. I don't mean any harm. I'm just saying, like, I agree with that, like your
Yeah, no, I
statement.
get you.
I'm just telling you my belief. I believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and however, and there is, Jesus exists as a connection between the manifestation and what we would determine here, Tao, God, whatever. Because he recognizes, and we recognize within him both. But both are within you as well. Right? You exist similarly to Jesus within a body connected to Tao, connected to God. The daughter of God. You are in the lineage of God. of Tao.
Right.
You are not less than. You have nothing to prove. And you follow the law of your planet. You walk, you talk, you eat, you breathe. If you were on a different planet that you did different things, you would do those things. But you're on this planet, in this space. And we, creating names for everything, have different countries. So you are part of a specific country, on a specific planet, in a specific universe, in a specific time. But all of that is forfeit to the one truth that it is void. It is all one. It is all God.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I remember.
I want to tell you that every day since I've been on your show the last week, I've been doing number representations, and I want to give you your props, and I want to say thank you because you inspired me to do that. And I started, yes, and even though I'm a believer of Jesus, I'm sure that he loves me in spite of doing this. And I wanted to do this every day. And I tell my aunt, which numbers I picked out. And the number God had gave me, I pray, I said, Jesus, give me the number. Please give me numbers. And he gave me 25 today.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's the thing. God is here and Jesus is here, but it is you. You in your, just by holding Jesus, just by holding God, just by holding these things. It's all like, Shakespeare said, a rose of any other name would smell as sweet. It's about the rose, not about the name. It's about God, not about the name. It's about Jesus, the energy that he injected into the universe, into this planet, that he opened us to. That's important. Not the name, not the story, but the us that is Jesus.
Right.
The Jesus that exists within each and every one of us. The best of each and every one of us. And that's what this is. That's why we look at this and we say, I call it Tao. I mean, we could change this to God is great, Jesus is great, my family is great, I am great. It's all the same.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if I say Tao, universes, planets, beings, or if I say 4 other things. Everything is great. It depends on what I ascribe to that. How do I describe it? What words do I use to talk about this? Because if I'm using words to talk about this, then that becomes specific. Now I'm talking about something specific, right? Like you're talking about Jesus specifically. I'm talking about Jesus or Tao from a broader perspective. I am saying now we are all this. It isn't about the particular. It's about my experience of the connection to all things. Thank you so much for bringing this up and for speaking to me about all of this.
Okay, thank you. I have to get going and eat breakfast.
Yeah, you go get
But
your
God
breakfast, dear.
blesses.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up today. I gotta run, but I appreciate you guys for listening and for coming up and speaking. We went through 16, 17, 4, and 25 today from Sparkly. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for joining me. There's so much information today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got to take something away. All right. Well, if you're interested in picking up a copy of my rendition of the Tao Te Ching, you can get a copy on my website, martinjohn.com. There are links in my profile. Other than that, I also work with individuals on this idea of recovering yourself. So getting out from under the influence of anything that you're under the influence of. That doesn't mean drugs and alcohol necessarily, because we're born under the influence of our parents, and then we're under the influence of religion and other economic systems and the education system and all sorts of stuff. So, but I want you to be exactly who you are. And you know, as we were just saying, our Jesus, our God, are connected to all things. So thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.